What's up people, welcome back to my little mini series on how to make a new disco track from start to finish. I think this is part 5, and today we're going to be looking at transitions and fills using Loopcloud and FabFilter's new plugin, Volcano 3. So what exactly is a transition? Well, a transition is what we use to move smoothly from one part of a song to another. So for example, if we wanted to move from a verse into a chorus, we can use a transition. And musically speaking, a transition can be just about anything. But in today's video, we're going to be looking at filter sweeps using Volcano 3 and drum fills. And we're going to start off really simple and basic and get progressively more complicated as the video goes through. Now, before we get into it, let's just do a quick rundown on what Loopcloud is and how it works. Now, if you do want to pick up Loopcloud or any of the plugins I use, including the FabFilter one, check out my links in the description below. They are affiliate links, which means if you click on them, you'll be supporting the channel and it won't cost you anything extra. But let's have a look at Loopcloud. So when I'm producing a track, you can see that I like to organize everything into folders. At the top here, see I've got all my drums, and then my bass, all my harmony elements, and so on and so forth. But any of you eagle-eyed viewers out there might have also noticed I also have this folder called Utility, which always appears empty in my arrangements. And if I open it up, you can see that inside this I have an instrument channel called Loopcloud. And if I open up the instrument, you can see we have this little thing here. And what this instrument is basically a bridge between Cubase and the Loopcloud app. And for those of you that don't know, the Loopcloud app is basically an online gateway to all of the sample packs from Loopmaster. And the way it connects to Cubase is really simple, but really quite genius. So I always like to have Loopcloud open on a second virtual desktop. To switch between desktops on Windows, the shortcut is Control, Windows key, and the left or right arrows. I actually have mine set up on macro controls, but we'll get into that in another video. And just to demonstrate quickly how Loopcloud works, I'm just going to loop the very intro of my track, which sounds like this. So nothing going on, just basic drum intro for the DJs, or for me when I'm DJing. And let's say I wanted to add a banjo to my track. I can either type it in the search field up here, or go to Instruments, Banjo, and given that my key is in G, I'm going to select G under key lock, select a sample, press play to audition it. And if I press play on my track, and then the play button, this sample will then play at the same BPM as my track. And you can see it has automatically shifted the sample down 4 semitones to fit in the key of G. And we can scroll through samples as easy as that. And if I find one that I like, I can just go back into Cubase, create a new audio track, purchase the sample with one click, click it again to download, and then just click, drag, put it in my project. And just like that, I have a banjo on my track, which I don't actually want for this track, but there you go. Really, really simple, really painless, and a really cost-effective way of sourcing samples. Now there is a whole bunch of other features contained within Loopcloud, but we're not going to get into that today because today I really want to focus on the topic, which is transitions. Let's go back to my track. And for those of you that have been following along, you will know that I used the arranger track to come up with this arrangement, which we can see at the top here. And I color coded my arrange track. So you can see each time it shifts color, a new section of the track is introduced. So for my first transition, I wanted to go from this bright red section to this burgundy section. Let's zoom in on that. And because this is just the intro that likely only the DJ is going to hear, I just wanted a very simple drum fill. So the first thing I did was just take out a kick and a snare just before the section changes, which sounds like this. And just taking out one or two drum elements is just a very simple but very effective way of letting the listener know that something new is about to come into the track. But in this case, I felt like it wasn't enough and I wanted some kind of drum fill. Now, of course, I could have just programmed one in, but I decided to use a sample. And the one that I found comes in this pack here, Essential Disco. It sounds like this. So once I dragged it into the project, it sounds like this. And I felt like I didn't really want that first hit, so just shortened it and slightly faded in the volume. Super simple. So now let's listen to how A1 goes into A2. And you can hear at the beginning of A2, the piano is now introduced. Now for me, that comes in a little bit abruptly. So if I go into my piano group, you can see that I've added an instance of Volcano 3. Now Volcano 3 is FabFilter's brand new filter plugin, and just like with all FabFilter products, it comes bundled with a whole bunch of modulation options, which makes it really good for using with transitions. Now I haven't done anything complicated here whatsoever. Just created a low pass filter. And with this automation line here, you can see I'm just sweeping the filter up. So let's have a listen to that. And we'll be able to hear how working with that drum fill, this serves as a nice little introduction to my piano part. And what we have here are basically the two types of transition that I'm going to show you today, drum fills and sweeps. And these are them in their most basic and simple form. So let's have a look at how I transition from my A section to my first real musical change in the track, which I have imaginatively called my B section. Let's have a listen to what it sounds like as it is. So to begin with, I did have this little crash fill, which I had in there previously, also sampled from Loopcloud, sounds like this. But I felt like it needed some more, so what I wanted to do was add a white noise ariser. The sample that I found comes from this pack, Chill Trap and Future R&B. On its own, it sounds like this. Now we can see by the title of the sample that this is at 160 BPM, which is either a bit too fast or a bit too slow for my track. So I'm going to click on this button here, ×2, which is going to double the current tempo of the sample. So now we have this. And if I play that along to the track, now we can hear that this kind of fits. It doesn't totally fit, but I wasn't really worried about everything totally fitting because my whole reason behind using Loopcloud to find transitions is to work quickly. And of course, yeah, I could go through thousands of samples and find one that fits perfectly, but I really don't have that kind of patience. So one that kind of fits is good enough for me. But of course, I want to personalize it and make it fit a lot better. So the first thing I did was just add a bit of reverb, just so that it tails out a bit better when the sample stops. Then of course I added some Volcano, and this one actually went with a preset. This one is called a Head Twister, which is under Modulation. Now the way this preset has been set up, it comes with these 3 macro controls. The one I decided to play back with was this one called Speed. And you can see here's my automation line. I can see in the actual sample that there's a bit of volume automation, as in it starts off quietly and gets louder. But I also wanted to add a filter sweep. So I just loaded up another Volcano. This time went with a high pass filter. And here you can see the automation line just automating the frequency. And just to finish things off, I added some tape echoes. So let's listen to the sample before the effects and after. So before. And after. And this really drives home the point I wanted to highlight about using transitions from Loopcloud. Of course, you can just drag them in and use them as is, but it's very unlikely that they're going to fit perfectly with your track. So using Volcano here just to make everything move exactly with my track is just so simple and so perfect. Really, really loving this plugin. Let's have a listen to that riser now in the context of the track. And that's just a really nice little signifier to hear that this song is about to switch into this B1 section. Okay, so let's go a little bit deeper into what Volcano 3 is capable of. Now, not as deep as what my old mate Dan Worrell did, but a little bit deeper than this snake oil guy went. Let's have a look. Now, coming off the tension that this white noise brought, I just felt like the B section sounded a little bit empty. So back in Loopcloud, I found another white noise sample. This one here. From this entrapment pack. So as you can see, I've just chopped it up and I'm just repeating the first 4 bars of the sample. So we get this kind of abrupt but kind of interesting movement happening. Of course, I wanted to add a bit of personality. So again, back in Volcano 3, and I found this preset under complex called resonant modulated combo. Sounds like this. And we can see that what's happening in this preset is an LFO is modulating this cutoff here. And we can find that LFO beside these macro controls by clicking on this arrow here. Here's the LFO. And if I click on it, you can see that the LFO is moving at a 1/4 note speed. And what I've done in my automation line is actually automate this value. Let's have a listen to that. So yeah, I've got it really low on the mix because I didn't want it to be an obvious effect. And the whole purpose of it being there is so that the track didn't sound empty after the white noise riser. But still, to me, it sounds a little bit busy. So what I'm going to do is load up another instance of Volcano 3. Now by default, it comes loaded in with a low pass. I'm just going to add a high pass to this too. Give it a bit of a peak. I'm going to click on Add Modulation. I'm going to add a new XLFO. Open up the options. I'm going to set it to 1/4 notes. And I'm going to link it to the level. And what I'm going to do is pull down the top of the LFO to the 0 crossing. So you can see now it never modulates above 0 dB. So if I play that just with the drums, we should just hear the white noise on the offbeat. And we can use this amount here to increase or decrease the volume ducking on this. I'm just going to add a little bit of this wider plugin, which is a free plugin from Polyverse, and it does what it says on the tin, just makes everything sound wider. So let's have a listen to this new white noise section after the white noise riser. Everything should sound a lot more cohesive now. Okay, so now we need to go from section B to section C, so let's have a look at how I did that. Let's have a listen to what that sounds like right now. A little bit abrupt. So I wanted to add a drum roll, and initially I went with this one from the Essential Disco pack. Sounds like this. And you can see I've just chopped it up a bit to make it a bit longer. So in the track it now sounds like this. Now of course I couldn't just leave it like that. I wanted to add a bit of personality using Volcano 3. So I just added a notch filter. You can see we can change the filter types by clicking on this button here. And I've just automated it along the drum roll. Sounds like this now. Let me solo it. A little bit more movement, a little bit more personality to that sample. I did feel like I needed a little bit more than just a single drum roll though, so I found this one in Essential Techno. Which you can see I've just chopped up a little bit, took out some of those double hits. Of course I added Volcano. This time I went with a bandpass and automated it, so it sounds like this. Just a very subtle upwards movement. Added some wider and some reverb. And after those drum rolls, I've added these two crashes. Again, both from Loopcloud. So let's have a listen within the context of the track. Okay, so for the final transition, I want to look at how we go from this kind of big hands in the air kind of moment to a kind of minimal style drop. So let's have a look at how I tackled that. So let's have a listen to it as it is. So you can hear as it starts, there's not really a whole lot of payoff as the drop hits, because the end of section CT was so intense. When A2 hits, it just sounds a little bit weak. So if I open up my drum part, you can see we've got these kind of breaks happening here. So the first thing I wanted to do was kind of filter these out. So the way I did this was actually on my drum bus channel. And of course, you guessed it, added some Volcano 3. So I have added just a high pass filter, but this one has a little bit more flavor than just the regular one. It's one of the presets, high pass filter 2BM. And to automate the frequency, you just use this macro control here, cut off. So 2 bits of automation on the drums here. First one is to automate the dry wet mix, and the second one is to automate this filter cutoff. Sounds like this. And the next thing I wanted to do was add a bit of flavor to the chords, which are all coming through this harmony bus. So again, I've added this high pass filter. So as well as automating the cutoff, actually also bring down the output level of this filter ever so slightly just at the end of this section, which is going to bring down the overall volume of the track, Not so much that anybody would consciously notice, but they will be able to hear it subconsciously, so when the drop hits, it will be a bit more impactful. Let's have a listen to that. Now I do just want to say a final thing when it comes to fills and transitions. If you look at how I use mine in my track, you can see that I'm using them quite sparingly. So here's that little drum fill, here's the snare roll, and the drum fill too. And you can see each time I'm not using them in the exact same way. I'm kind of mixing and matching them. On the blues section here, you can see I don't actually have this snare roll come in on the second blues section. And it's the same with my white noise sections. You can see this white noise riser here leads from the red to the blue, and the red to the blue here, but not in this section. And even though no one's really concentrating on these transitions, I do feel like it should still vary when they come in and when they don't throughout the track, just so things aren't as predictable, but still satisfying to listen to. Okay, so let's listen to how all those transitions play together. Now, I'm not going to play the whole track, but I'll play a minute or two so you can hear how everything kind of flows into one another. Yes, I'm loving how this is coming along. Of course, I need to deal with the issue of the mix. I'll do that in the next video. Okay, so we're going to leave it there for today. And like I said before, if you do want to pick up Loopcloud, Volcano 3 or any of the other plugins I use, check out the link in the description below. It will be supporting the channel, and of course, it won't cost you anything extra. But anyway, that's it for now. I've been Craig Lopez. This has been Tutorialism. Now go make some transitions. Peace.